Alright, so I'm gonna get around to throwing the DHM cam in today. So basically this is it. They say it's like the biggest, I guess, profile you can have on the stock valve train, but they're like #1 with these. There's a couple other out there, but these are the ones everyone's going for. I'm also kind of being a little extra and throwing an adjustable cam gear on there. You don't need this by any means. You could put the stock one on. This one's from Yuminashi. The only ones I've seen are Yuminashi, and then CJR has one. And then if you're going to run one of these, you do need an aftermarket cover. So you need to run one of these. It doesn't have to be Moritech. I know Avail has one, but they haven't been available for a while. But you need them so that you can clear the little bolts here that make these adjustable. They're going to hit the stock one. So you do need an aftermarket cover. I think basically any aftermarket cover works. Just watch. I know Yuminashi doesn't tell you. The CJR cam gear, so it's a little confusing. You need to be, I think, 2 degrees advanced. Don't quote me on that, but you do have to put it in, I believe, an advanced setting to match the stock setting. Yuminashi doesn't tell you any of that, so I'm assuming it's going to be the same. I'm going to try to just match up the gears so that they're like basically in line, so whatever it comes out to. But yeah, so I ordered this straight from Yuminashi. CJR, I ordered one. If you order one from CJR, I don't think it's like wrong, but I kind of messed up. There's a drop down menu you can have with the logo, the CJR logo, or without, and then it shows the cam cover. So I was like, all right, cool. So I ordered it with the cam cover, and I only got this. You actually have to order the cam twice. So basically order the cam with or without the logo, and then go back, order the cam, and choose this off the drop down, and you'll get just this. So just keep that in mind. Yuminashi, it comes from like Thailand, so it's kind of a pain. So like I said, you don't really need any of these. I'm sure a few people are running them. If you want to just do the cam, you can throw the stock cam gear on, but it's basically the same thing. You could just go to wherever I'm putting the cam gear on, and just, if it's the stock one, it's basically the same exact thing. But I am going to try to show you how to set this so that it matches the stock one. And then to do the actual job, you're going to want Allen keys or Allen sockets. That's just to open up like the timing covers. I believe it's a 19, so that we can time it. I don't know. I think it's either a 10 or a 12 to get the cam out, and then an 8mm so that we can get the valve covers off. And then to time it, or set the valve clearance rather, I think I can use a wrench in these. I ordered a tool and I've been waiting weeks for it, so that's kind of what's been holding me up. But I'm going to try to rig something up so that I can set it. Oh, and you need feeler gauges too. DHM says that it's a .005 for intake and exhaust, so we'll set the valve clearance so that way it works out. Alright, so first things first, this is where your cam actually is. This is the cover that I'm actually going to be replacing with that Moritech one. So I think they're 8s. Yeah. So these are 8mm. Just pop these off. Jesus Christ. Don't do that. Alright, so this is something I have not seen anyone do, like to begin with at least. I would time this immediately. So here you can actually see, let me see. You can see there's a little dot here. Can you actually see it? Let me see. There's like a little dot here on the cam gear, like right where this little like notches that locks it. You want that in time with this little, there's a little notch. Let me see, like right at like the 9 o'clock of this. So you want to set that, and then in here, this is where the timing, I guess this is the timing cover, I guess what you call it. This is what the Allen keys are for. So let's do this. Which one is it? Alright, so this is actually a 17 in here. I believe it spins counterclockwise. It doesn't feel right when you go clockwise. You really don't want to spin it the wrong way ever. So if you look in here, well, first let me show you this. There's this dot here. This is what I was talking about. You want it right here. That's top dead center. And on this side, you'll see top dead center comes. Let me see, it's coming up. You're going to see an F. Where is it? It's an F and then a T. can't really see too well, but it is there. And this is very close. It's not quite there, but it's very close. So now I'm gonna hold this here, get my, I believe it's a 12, right? 12 on there, and I'm gonna break that free. I don't have any impact tools with me, so I'm kind of doing this the old-fashioned way. I can already see why this is everyone's least favorite part. Or, well, the least favorite part is actually getting this thing on. Well, don't do that either. Oh my God. All right. Well, there's my hair and dirt covered cam gear. That's great. All right. Well, that's it. Luckily, I got another one. And then this is what actually holds the cam in. Looks like that's a 10. Really wish I had all my impact tools with me. So these right here, these are your valve covers, intake and exhaust. The 22 model, actually, they're labeled, so you really can't mess them up. I think the intake is like a breather on it or something. I don't know. Oh, this is great. Just a little, there's a lot of oil in there. It says exhaust, it says intake. So like I said, you really can't get them mixed up. Alright, so take this with a grain of salt, because I'm sure this is not the good way to do this, but it worked. So, if you look here, I know it's dark as fuck, and I'm sorry. I used an 1132. I know, standard on a Honda, it's fucking crazy. And I loosened this nut here on top of the valve, or rocker, whatever. Then there's a little 4-point right on top. So you loosen this nut, just crack that loose, spin it, then you spin this little 4-point. I just did it by hand, and then it'll eventually stop. And now it rocks back and forth like crazy. Did that on the intake and the exhaust, same thing. Don't back the nut all the way off, just loosen it a couple threads, and then loosen the little 4-point all the way. That's what I did. And now the cam should, with a little finesse, come out. Oh yeah, there she is. Be careful not to scratch anything. You definitely don't want to do that. But yeah, that's your stock cam. It has like a counterweight, I think this is. Don't know the point of that. I don't know, I don't understand. But I'm going to get the new one in there. Get the cam gear on there. That's going to be the biggest pain in the ass, I promise. And then I'll adjust the valves. So yeah, let's go. And you want to make sure you oil the new cam. So I'm going to go oil the new cam. Slide that in, and we'll take care of everything. I don't know, man. It wasn't quite as straightforward as I was hoping, but that's where I have it. So you can see there's that little indent, which is where it's basically pointing to. There's the middle line, which is completely the same as the other one. Oh, actually, it sticks up a little bit more in the middle. So I double checked. CJR said that it's 2.5 degrees advanced, or 2.5 degrees to the right. This is for the CJR one, to match the stock 22 Grom cam positioning. So with that being said, I set this one to about that, and then I looked where these little marks are, these little like locking pins, lined them up, and I lined up the cam gears. So this one came out to about the same. It looks like I'm at about 2 degrees as opposed to 2.5, which I guess I could have this at 2. This one's a little over more. Either way, it is kind of reassuring knowing that, again, for CJR, Yuminashi doesn't tell you any of this. I'm just using the two because they're almost like carbon copies of each other. But for CJR, I guess, knowing that it's 2 degrees advanced to match stock is kind of assuring, because advancing is what can really cause a lot of damage. It does give you a lot more power, but you'll blow the engine up with that. If you retard the ignition timing, you'll lose a little bit of power, but it is a little bit less likely to, you know, cause detonation and cause damage. Not saying that if you fully retard it all the way, you'll be fine. You don't want to do that either, but advancing is more dangerous. So with that being said, knowing that 2 degrees advanced kind of means that there's technically only so much more advanced you can go, and I think they said that they ran 2 degrees advanced from that. So technically the gear was 4 degrees advanced, I believe, and they said they noticed like a 6% power increase. So just something to keep in mind. But this is where I have it set at. It's like right around the 2 degrees advanced mark. I tightened them down, took one out at a time, put blue Loctite on it, and just gave it a nice little, like, you know, torque. Don't want to go too crazy, don't want to break anything. But yeah, so now what I'm going to do, I just have regular, just oil. Just kind of coat this. The bearing already comes pre-packed, which is cool. You just don't want to put anything in dry, you know what I mean? Even if it runs for like a second with no oil on it, that can cause a lot of unnecessary damage. Not necessarily going to break anything, but it's like, why do that? Alright, so that's all good to go. Alright, so now I'm going to put this in. I'm just going to slide this right in place, put the bolt down, bolt this in, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to finesse the cam gear on and try to keep it in time the whole time. That's going to be the hardest thing, is getting the cam gear on and keeping it in time. And timing is also something you don't want to mess with. I know I was just telling you about like advancing it for more power and retarding it, but mechanical timing you want dead on. You don't want to play with that. I'm 99% positive this is an interference motor, which means if you have it off timing and you're running it, the piston and the valves will kiss and you're doomed. So don't do that. Alright, so we'll put this in and hope for the best and hope it's not an absolute nightmare like I'm afraid it will be. Alright, so little side in first, and again, you don't want to like score anything either. So just be real mindful when you're putting this in. You don't want to force anything. Alright, so I can't find an actual torque spec, but I did see some where they were saying it wants you to add oil, but since we're doing power mods, you want to do a little bit of blue Loctite. Get that on there. And then I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to do. Let's see here, what do we got? Let's see how 9 foot-pounds is. I'm gonna go to 7. That feels like plenty. I don't want to break that thing, especially not in there. Alright, so I got this on the chain. It's way off timing, so one thing you can do is try to like hold the chain and spin it. I've seen a few people do that. That actually looks pretty good. If you ask me, I think that's good. So I have it on the chain where I want it. Let's see. But now, the trick is to get the gear with the chain on it on the cam. And it's the biggest pain in the ass you are probably going to deal with this entire install. Alright, that was literally the most difficult thing I've ever had to do, I've ever done on this bike. But I got it on. If you look, let me see if I can. Hold on, let me spin this real quick. Alright, if you look, you might be able to kind of see the T is right there. I want on that little mark up there. And then right here, I got the notches lined up. So it's a little harder to tell with the adjustable cam gear, but that's about as close as I can get it. Basically what I did was, let me see, it was really hard to get on film. with the cam gear sitting, I took a flathead and I just kind of kept prying, and with my other hand holding it with my thumb trying to press it in, and then once it kind of sat in place, you gotta finagle it and you'll feel it like click in place finally. So if it's just sitting there, don't just get the bolt on there. You want to make sure it's not wobbling at all and it's actually fully on there. So got it on. I put some blue Loctite on this and just hit it with my impact real quick. Just a nice little, I forgot I did actually have a gun. I made this work. So got that on there. So now we have to do these. So I'm going to get my feeler gauges. You're going to put them, let me see. I got no light. But you want to get your feeler gauge under where the rocker contacts the retainer. And then you're going to tighten it down. It's a little it's like a little 4-point thing. Get that down and then tighten down the lock nut. So I'm going to get my feeler gauge and we'll get that done. Alright, so what you want to do, this little rocker here, you're going to have these completely loose from before. You're going to want to take a .005 feeler gauge and stick it right where the rocker meets the retainer. And you want it so that it's got just a little bit of drag. You don't want it to not, you want it to be able to go under it, but you don't want it to slide right under it. You want it to catch a little bit. So to adjust it, you want to loosen this, the nut. Then there's a little 4-point, you could just spin it by hand. Then you want to hold it in place, tighten the nut, and then check it. Just until there's enough drag. You want to do that for intake and exhaust. So that's the intake side. Now I'm going to do the exhaust now. We should be good to go. Alright, so I'm basically all finished. I'm going to throw the new cover on. I got the valves adjusted. Now I did take the spark plug out now, but so my philosophy, anytime you do like major engine work, especially something that has to do with like timing, always spin the engine a bunch of times by hand. Now I took the spark plug out so that way there's no compression and I can see, I could just keep spinning it. This is probably like the 6th or 7th time I've gone over. Now look, I'm very close. I want to make sure it still stays in time just as much. There's my timing marks. Alright, just missed, so it's a little past, but that's about where it's at. So that's good. Like I said, I took the spark plug out because it'll give it resistance. You want to make sure that you're not hitting any valves. So it's spinning freely, everything's tight. So I'm going to put the plugs back in. I'm going to put the new cover on and should be good to go. Then obviously get the spark plug back in. Alright, that's basically that. You can see, I mean, it looks pretty cool. I like it. Gives it a nice little, I don't know, something to it. So yeah, engine's in time, everything's tight, valves are adjusted. I think that's basically everything. The only thing that I'm hoping is that the cam is okay. Hopefully, if anything, it's a little, or it's at least not too advanced. But again, that's on me. If you're using the stock cam gear, you don't have to worry about that at all, as long as you mechanically timed it correctly. Well, yeah, I guess now I'll start it up and hope for the best. Alright, so it's the next day. I figured I would just do a few closing thoughts. Basically, I put the flash DCU in. I took my aRacer out, put that in because it's just a plug and play. It didn't want to, well, it started, but it didn't want to idle. So I held the throttle at like maybe 1200 and let it kind of like just sit for a minute or two. And then DHM told me that when you do this and use the flash DCU and everything, you have to ride it around for 20-25 minutes, and that's when it really figures itself out and starts running good. I mean, off the rip, it ran like a brand new bike, but after I gave it some time, it was idling fine all by itself, and it's got power band all throughout the RPM range. Like, it's awesome. I think it redlines at 10 grand, they said too. Yeah, just make sure when you do it, like I said, just valves are at .005, oil everything, blue Loctite any bolts that like were on the cam and the cam gear and all that. You definitely want to spin it too, like I did at the end. Just make sure you do that. Just you know, you want to take your time with it. You don't want to rush this, because if you do one thing wrong, it could be detrimental to the entire engine. Get honestly fucked up. You know what I mean? So just make sure you take your time, do everything tediously. That's what I try to do. I do also want to say, I would stay far away from doing the timing gear. And my reasons, so I'm familiar with this stuff. I'm by no means a professional, but I am familiar with it. So going with the Yuminashi gear, they have no info on it. You know what I mean? I went off of another company, CJR, their info for their gear. You know what I mean? Like, I would have just got 2 of their gears, but it was a whole thing. Like, this was available. I was hoping it'd come sooner, and I was like, it's probably about the same. And they might be. But, like, if you know what you're doing, then yeah, go for it. But if you've never touched this stuff before, or you're honestly not that familiar, I would just stick with the stock cam gear. Maybe go with CJRs if you know what you're doing. So, because they have all the info on their site, do it at your own risk. I put it at 2 degrees advanced, and if you want to copy that, more power to you, but do it at your own risk. You know what I mean? I just don't want to be responsible for, or feel like I'm responsible for someone setting this and then it being too far advanced or something. So it's a lot of added risk for very little gain. I just did it because I'm bougie, and I don't regret it by any means, but you know, it's something to just kind of keep in mind. But yeah, hope this kind of helped you guys out. I have a few more things I'll be doing to it soon. I got my new Grom coming, so I have a whole bunch of other stuff I got to do, but just take your time with this. You know what I mean? It's definitely well worth it. If you've seen one person's response to this cam and how it makes the bike feel, you've seen them all. It's nothing but good things, and I could finally say that I understand exactly why. So it definitely lives up to its name. All right, so keep an eye out for whatever I got going on next time. All right, I'll see you guys later.